Edward wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted the last bucket of paint on his motorcycle. The sun hung low over Nsukka, casting golden shadows across the dusty streets. His body moved out of habit, but his heart remained anchored in a past he could never shake. It had been 5 years since Amanda's death, and yet not a day passed without her voice echoing in his dreams. People said time healed all wounds, but Edward knew that was a lie. Time had only taught him how to function while hollow. He had stopped crying after the 2nd year, but not because he had healed, because he had nothing left to pour out. The memory was vivid. The hospital had called, saying Amanda went into labor. He had rushed down, heart racing with excitement and anxiety, but by the time he arrived, the doctor's eyes had sunk with sorrow. Complications, they said. She didn't make it. And the baby? Stillborn, they whispered. They never showed him her face. Just a wrapped casket, sealed tight. He remembered collapsing on the floor of the ward, wailing like a madman. He begged them to let him see her, just once. Just once. But they said her body was in no condition to be viewed. They claimed it was for his own good. And in his haze of grief, he believed them. Edward had buried her, or what they gave him, without questioning further. His parents and in-laws wept beside him, and for a long time, it was easier to accept the lie than dig for the truth. But fate had a cruel sense of humor. That day, while delivering paint to a newly built compound outside Nsukka, Edward's life changed forever. The contractor wasn't home, so he waited, leaning against a mango tree in the back. That was when he saw her. There, beneath another mango tree in the compound behind, sat a woman. Her laughter floated in the wind, soft, familiar, haunting. She held a baby on her chest, gently breastfeeding. The same way Amanda had always imagined doing with their son. His eyes widened. The posture. The elegance. The tiny scar just below her neck, yes, he remembered it vividly from their wedding night. The way her head tilted when she smiled. He nearly dropped the bucket in his hand. Amanda, he whispered, his voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. The woman looked up. Her eyes met his. But there was no recognition. She blinked, confused. Then looked away, adjusting the baby on her lap. Edward stepped forward, his heart pounding. Amanda, it's me. Edward. Before she could speak, a tall man emerged from the house with fury in his eyes. Hey. What are you doing here? I know her. That's my wife? Edward cried. The man stormed toward him. You must be mad. That's my wife you're talking about. Leave this compound before I call the police. Edward stood frozen, staring at her. Amanda, please, look at me again. Don't you remember me? You had a necklace with our initials, you always, I don't know you, she said quietly, eyes filled with fear now. Please leave. The man shoved him. This is your final warning. Edward stumbled back, hands in the air, defeated. He climbed on his bike and rode away, nearly crashing into a bush as his mind spun. That night, sleep eluded him. He sat in the dark, replaying the moment 100 times. That scar. That laugh. Her eyes. It had to be her. The next morning, he returned to the hospital where she had died. It had changed. New paint. New staff. But some of the old records were still there. He asked questions, faint curiosity. Most people brushed him off. But in a dim hallway, he met someone, a woman in a wheelchair. An elderly nurse with trembling hands and clouded eyes. When he introduced himself, her lips quivered. Edward. Yes, Ma, he said cautiously. I lost my wife here 5 years ago. Amanda. She covered her mouth and began to weep. They told me never to speak of it again. But I remember her. Brave woman. Strong spirit. What happened to her? Please. I need the truth. The nurse grabbed his wrist. She refused. She refused to offer your child. Edward's brows furrowed. Offer? What do you mean? They came for her. Told her the baby belonged to them, to the order. She screamed. For them. So they wiped her memory and sent her away. Who are they? He demanded. The nurse's eyes glazed over with fear. Dr. Albert. That name, that's where it began. Edward staggered back, his mind reeling. What kind of hospital does that? What is this? She leaned closer. An underground network. They call themselves the Fertility Covenant. Rich people, powerful men, paying for babies. When women refuse, they are erased. Given fake identities. New lives. Distant places. Edward stared at her in horror. So Amanda, she's alive. Yes. But she doesn't know who she is anymore. The next few days were a blur. Edward skipped work, his thoughts consumed by shadows and whispers. He tracked down mentions of Dr. Albert, an elusive figure with no public history. But whispers on old forums and retired hospital staff painted him as a fertility specialist turned cultist. Now Edward knew the truth, or enough of it. He had to get her back. But he needed proof. At night, armed with only a flashlight and a shaky phone camera, he returned to the rural compound. He crept through the bushes, heart hammering against his ribs. Through the window, he saw her, Amanda, alone with the baby. She rocked the child gently, humming. It was the same lullaby she used to sing when they lay in bed, dreaming of their unborn son. Tears welled in his eyes. She remembers something, he whispered to himself. She still remembers the song. He aimed the camera, zooming in slowly. He needed a recording. Proof. But then, creak. The sound of a door opening behind him sent chills down his spine. A cold voice slithered through the night. We warned you to leave her alone. Before he could turn, something struck the back of his head. Darkness swallowed him. Edward's eyes fluttered open to darkness, but it wasn't the kind that lulled you to sleep. It was thick, heavy, and terrifying. His head throbbed with pain, his body cold against what felt like rough cement. As he stirred, he realized his hands and feet were bound with what felt like wire. Panic set in. The air smelled of damp earth and burnt incense. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by candles placed in a wide circle around him. The flames flickered oddly, as though afraid of what stood at their center. A cloaked figure stepped into view, robes trailing like a serpent's tail, face hidden beneath a deep hood. The voice that emerged sent a chill through Edward's spine. You weren't supposed to come back, Edward. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. Who are you? The figure laughed, a slow, mocking sound. I am the one who erased your wife, the gatekeeper of memory and rebirth. I am Dr. Albert. Edward strained against the wires. You're a monster. No, the man replied coldly. I am balance. This world thrives because of sacrifice. You cling to one woman, but I have given hundreds a second life, free of pain, free of burden. He lifted a bowl of black liquid and began chanting in a language Edward had never heard before. The candles dimmed, their flames retreating. Edward's mind spun. He felt dizzy, like something was pulling pieces of him apart, thought by thought. Let go, Albert whispered. Soon you won't even remember your name. But in that moment, when everything began to fade, a sound pierced the haze. A melody. A lullaby. Soft and fragile, it played in his mind like a lifeline. Amanda's voice. Sleep, my baby, night is near. Edward clenched his teeth, fighting the void. No, he shouted. I remember. I remember her. The ritual faltered. Albert hissed, frustrated. Silence him. Footsteps echoed as two guards approached from the shadows. Just as one reached for Edward, a sharp scream rang out. A woman burst through the room, swinging a broken pipe with fury. One guard went down. The other rushed at her, but she ducked and struck again. Edward blinked in disbelief. The woman turned toward him. Hold on, I'll cut you loose. Who are you? He croaked. My name is Clara. My mother was the nurse you spoke to. The night she told you the truth, she suffered a stroke. I've been watching this court ever since. She caught his binds, and Edward stumbled to his feet. Come on, we don't have long time, she urged. They fled through a side passage, Albert's furious screams echoing behind them. As they burst into the cool night, Edward inhaled deeply. The stars above had never felt so comforting. At Clara's hideout, a tiny abandoned classroom, Edward crafted a plan. She remembered the lullaby. I saw it. It's the only connection we have. He borrowed Clara's speaker, synced it to his phone, and loaded a recording of the lullaby. This is our weapon. The next night, Edward returned to the compound, this time with purpose. He hid in the bush near the back window where Amanda always sat. His hand trembled as he pressed play. The lullaby played softly, floating through the night like a ghost. Sleep, my baby, night is near, he began calling gently, Amanda. Amanda, it's me. Edward. Inside, Amanda sat with the baby. Her eyes twitched. Her grip on the child weakened. The lullaby grew louder. Amanda, come back to me. Remember our wedding day. Remember the necklace. The dance. The promise. Suddenly, the baby slipped from her lap and began crying. Amanda clutched her head, letting out a small cry of pain. Visions assaulted her, flashes of white lace, laughter, Edward's beaming face, her swollen belly, their vows. The man she lived with rushed in. Nkem. What's wrong? She stared at him blankly. Then, without warning, she slapped him across the face. Don't call me that. My name is Amanda. And that's my husband out there. The man growled. They warned me about this. The programming is breaking. She pushed past him, staggering toward the door. Edward. He chased after her, but she grabbed the broomstick and swung it wildly. Touch me again and I swear I'll end you. She ran out into the night, barefoot and trembling. The gravel tore at her feet, but she didn't care. Her heart knew the path. Edward stood at the road, heart pounding. Then, there she was. Running toward him. Her hair flying. Her eyes wet. She stopped before him, touching his cheek. Edward, she whispered. What happened to me? He grabbed her into a hug, sobbing. You came back, you found me, but before they could savor the moment, a terrible sound shattered the peace, police sirens. Blue and red lights painted the trees. Cars pulled up. Officers jumped out, weapons drawn. Hands up, one shouted. You are under arrest for child abduction. Edward raised his hands. Wait. This is a mistake. Dr. Albert stepped out of one of the cars, still roped, but now smirking. He took the child. And the woman is mentally unstable. Clara appeared from the trees. That's a lie. But Amanda stepped forward, calm and strong. No. I'll go with you if you want. Arrest me. Edward turned to her, confused. Amanda, what are you doing? She looked at the lead officer and said, but before you arrest me, dig behind that compound. There's a tree with red cloth tied to its roots. Beneath it, you'll find the bones of the other women, the ones who didn't forget. Gasps erupted. The officers exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Albert's face twisted in rage. Edward reached out and gripped her hand tightly. In the silence that followed, one of the officers quietly ordered, someone get a shovel. After digging they found not just bones but bodies of dead people he just recently killed. He tried to flee upon discovery but the police held tighter making sure to never let go as he was arrested. And Amanda continued living together and never in Edward's life did he think he'll see Amanda again. But fate played its role.